Hey there, everybody. It is Anne-Marie, Bold Global Travel. I'm sorry I'm a little late getting on life. How is everybody doing? I am on live today to talk about my recent trip to Colombia, South America. Um, but first, quick intro for those who don't know who I am. I'm Anne Marie, Bold Global Travel. I encourage Black women over 40, and especially those of us over 50, to engage in solo travel as self care. I give tips and information about travel and solo travel. I really want those of us who are over 40 and those of us in our 50s and beyond to stop waiting for other people. Book the flight, get on the plane. Life is short, book the flight. That's what I always say. So I recently just got back from Colombia. Hi Marcia. Hi the Kayleana. Hi there. I just got back from Colombia, South America. This was actually my first visit, believe it or not, to South America, the continent of South America. I've never been there before. Hi, Danica. So I decided to go to Cartegena and Medellin, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my visit there. If you are a member of my Facebook group, if you're a Black woman who's interested in solo travel, either loves to solo travel or aspires to, you should join my Facebook group. I share a lot of things in there that I don't share elsewhere. I shared some information about my trip to kind of give people a preview of some of the things I'm going to talk about. So if you're in there, you might have an idea, and if you aren't, then you'll hear about it now. But anyway, I live in Mexico, so I flew from Mexico to Colombia. So I'm going to share some things. So if you're planning to visit Colombia, these are things to keep in mind. So the first thing is, if you are flying into Colombia, there is a website called, I think it's called like Check Migration. And I'm sorry, yeah, there's a little background sound because it's my fan, because menopause is menopausing right now, and I won't make it through this live if I don't have this fan on. So I apologize for the noise. I might try to see if I can turn it down a little bit, but that's the reason why, because I ain't gonna make it, y'all, if I don't have this fan on. But I flew from Mexico to Colombia. If you are traveling to Colombia, you have to do this immigration form. They track electronically your entrance and exit from the country. The airline sent me information about it after I booked. So you have to do it within 72 hours to a certain number of hours before you leave the day of the flight. And the website, I believe, is called Check Migration, CHECK, or something like that. But it's basically an immigration site that belongs to the government of Colombia, and you have to have that completed. You can just save it to your phone. You don't have to print it out, but you do have to fill in the information about your plans, your travel, where you're staying, that kind of information, before you come into the country. So that's something to be aware of, because there were people who got held up at the gate trying to board the flight because they didn't have their form done. The other thing that, and you have to do it no matter where you're coming from, you don't need a visa if you are an American citizen to enter Colombia, but everybody has to go into that portal and fill it out. Hey there, Jamie, Audrey, Auntie Lou, hello. Tracy, how are you? So did that. The other thing you often get hemmed up with at the airport, just as an aside, is, a lot of times they'll let you get your boarding pass online electronically, but then they won't let you get on the plane unless they see your passport. So if you don't go up, I don't like to go up to the main ticket counter, because they always want to be scrutinizing your bag, and they want to weigh your bag and all this kind of foolishness. So if I can get my boarding pass electronically, I go to the gate and then go up to the gate and show them your passport. Don't wait for them to call your name, because then they might mess up your boarding position, which happened to me on my flight from Mexico to Panama, because I flew Mexico, Panama, Cartagena. So just keep that in mind as well, that if I flew Copa Airlines, and I actually enjoy Copa Airlines, very professional. Panama has a really nice airport, actually. But make sure that you go to the counter, go up to the gate person and show them your passport. Don't wait for them to call you, because then they may call when you're supposed to be boarding, and that, I'm very obsessive about getting on the plane in my boarding position, because I always either pay for an early boarding position, or I make sure I'm in the first or second group getting on the plane, so I can make sure I don't have to check my bag, because I do not like checking bags at all. So that's something to keep in mind. If you, like me, do not like to check bags, if you do not travel and check bags, and that's just something to keep, that's a little tip to keep in mind. Even though they let you have your boarding pass, if it's in an international flight, they have to check your pass. Someone has to actually see your passport before you can get on the plane. So just make sure as soon as they open up the gate that you go up and show them your passport, so that they don't mess up your boarding position trying to do that at the last minute. Anyway, so I get to Cartagena. First thing I'm gonna tell you is, one of the things you should keep in mind, especially those of us over 50 whose backs and knees might not be what they were 20 years ago, don't overpack your carry-on. Okay, I don't, but that's just something to say, because as you know, not all of these airplanes have a jetway. That means you may have to be going up and down stairs with that carry-on, and so you don't want to over, pack it, because it's not going to feel good when you get off the plane and it's hot as all get out. And we're getting ready to talk about how freaking hot it was in Cartagena. But not only that, I swear you're like, I wouldn't say a mile away from the airport, but it's a good walk. It's probably the longest walk I've done from a plane to the actual airport in a long time, right? So if you're getting off a plane and you got to go down the stairs of the plane, and then you got to take your bag all the way across the field, the concrete, walk there, and then you got to walk across to get to the airport. Keep all of that in mind, because it's a lot when you get to Cartagena. It's a small airport considering the amount of traffic that goes through that airport. It's not a very big airport, which brings me to, once we got into the airport, thank God it was air conditioned, because I ended up standing for 2 hours to get through immigration. And I'm not exaggerating. I actually put my timer on, because I realized once I got on the line that it could be long, and it ended up being like a little under 2 hours. It was a lot of people, and it's like multiple planes were arriving at the same time. And so it was like a whole bunch of people in the immigration hall, and they were only like, I think, 3 or 4 people to process all the people that were in the hall. And so wear comfortable shoes, and I heard it was that way for several days. It wasn't. I arrived, I think, on a Wednesday or Tuesday. I think it was a Tuesday I arrived. So it's not like I got there on either Tuesday or Wednesday, because I flew through Cancun. But it's not like I arrived on a Thursday or a Friday before the weekend. 2 hours, girl, 2 hours. Okay. It was a long ass line. And this guy had a meltdown on the line, and they ended up taking him off the line and putting him back on and sending him back out of the country. I'm not exaggerating. He started cussing and carrying on, and they were very polite. I don't even think he realized what was getting ready to happen to him till it did. But I heard the yelling and the screaming and the carrying on. And then the next thing I knew, 2 people came, they got him off the line, they put him to stand to the side, they collected his luggage, and then they took him back to departures from whence he came. So that's not a place apparently to be cutting up. You're just gonna stand on that line and you're gonna wait. So one of the things that I noticed while I was standing on the line was that there was an inordinate amount of Black men in the immigration hall. And I was looking around, and I was like, there's a lot of Black men here. I ain't never seen this. I hadn't seen that many Black men in one place since Essence Music Festival, which is coming up next month, next weekend. Hi there. It was a trough of Black men of all age ranges. And so I said, girl, passport bros, passport hoes is what I call them. But I sent a message to my cousin, because I always I have a group where with my sister and my cousin, and I always like let them know when I'm taking off, when I land, where I am. They are my security team. They know all my movements. My cousin has the ability to track my phone and all of that. I always like to make sure that somebody knows where I am at all times. So I said to her, I was like, girl, I think the passport bros are in Cartagena. And because I was like, I don't think I've seen this many men in an airport before. And it was a trough of them in the airport. And I will say, after I finally got off that 2-hour line, and I had a car waiting for me, and I got out to outside. The two things that I immediately did confirm was that there was a gazillion black men in the airport, and it is hot as all get out in Cartagena in June. It is hot like the devil's armpit. It is hot like you are in the bowels of hell. It is hot. And it's not just hot, it's humid. So it's not just that the sun is hot. It's like your clothes start sticking to you as soon as you get outside. It was extremely hot. And I just told y'all I gotta have a fan on. So this was not thrilling for me. So, and I was only outside for maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like 30 minutes, one of those kinds of things. And thankfully, the cars were all air conditioned, and the ride from the airport to actual Cartagena proper, the city, is only 15 minutes. It's not far. Like, the airport is right there, and it's a nice drive. You get to see the ocean on the way because the city is right on the sea. You get to see the walled city. Part of the city historically was walled, and I stayed in Gethsemane, which is a neighborhood right outside of the walled city. So literally you can walk from there to the walled city in about 5 to 8 minutes, depending on where in the neighborhood you're staying. I really liked Gethsemane. I stayed at a hotel called, what was the name of that hotel? I'm gonna tell you all the name of the hotel because it was really nice and had a really great restaurant, and I do recommend it. I stayed in Gethsemane. Gethsemane has some of the most beautiful murals I've seen anywhere in the world, honestly. And I live in a city that has beautiful murals in Mexico, but it really has some stunning like murals and art in that part of the city. So it's a really great neighborhood to stay in if you're going to Cartagena. I stayed at the Hotel Casa Lola, and it was quite reasonable, by the way. Very reasonable, like per night. I think it was pretty reasonable. It was less than 70. I think it was somewhere around $70, $80 a night. It was an expensive hotel, but it was very nice, like boutique hotel. The restaurant, I think, which is called Doña Lola. Excellent. The food at the hotel was really great. It was excellent. The staff was really nice, super professional. The rooftop was cute. The pool was not very big, but it was pretty. But it was so hot that I couldn't be out on the rooftop for more than maybe 30 minutes because it was so hot outside. I mean, June is probably, I would say summer is not a good time to go to Cartagena. I've heard that maybe the first couple months of the year, like winter months, like January, February, I know someone who said she went in February and she said the weather was good. All I can say is I did not enjoy the temperatures in Cartagena at all. It was like I did a walking tour. I did several tours, which I like to do. I did a walking tour and I did a food tour. And thankfully, the walking tour had to be postponed because the first day was torrential rain. Like, it rained like cats and dogs the first morning that I was there. It rained, and we were supposed to go out that morning to do the tour. So they pushed it to the afternoon. And I'm actually glad that they did, because at least the sun was not as high in the sky by 4 o'clock when we ended up doing the food tour that evening, and then we did the walking tour the next day. And it was hot. Like, my guide, who was a sweetheart, he had one of those little handheld fans, and I've since bought one for myself, and he gave it to me, and I used it for the whole time. And that's the only reason I was able to like tolerate doing, it was like an hour or more of a walking tour. And it was fascinating. And he also worked it out because he's done it many times that we went into a museum and the museum was air conditioned. There's a museum called, I think it's called the Gold Museum. Like they have like, they show you, people used to mine gold in Cartagena. And so they show you a lot of jewelry and things that were mined from like way back. It's really, really pretty, and the hotel is air conditioned. So near the end, we went in there. He took me to see the palenqueras, which are the ladies in the pretty dresses that you see with the fruit on their heads. They are actually from Palenque, which is one of the oldest African freed slave communities in the world. And I think it's considered to be the oldest one in South America. I didn't get to go to Palenque because I did not have the right footwear. The guy, my tour guide, told me I shouldn't wear sandals. And he also told me I needed to wear a hat because it's out in the open and it was extremely hot. So I ended up not doing Palenque. But the ladies come into the main town because they make money doing pictures and stuff with tourists. So I did have a picture with one of the women, one of the older ladies that was there, and that was interesting. But the walking tour was great. I definitely recommend. I love doing walking tours because you learn a lot about a place in a short period of time by doing that. You can also learn about places to eat, like lots of different things. The food tour was great. She like introduced us to a lot of local food and fruits. And what I found is that there's a huge, African influence in Cartagena. It was a slave, an area of slave trade, and there are a lot of the foods that even candy that I'm familiar with from the Caribbean, I also saw in Cartagena, so that was interesting. There are a lot of Black people, so that was nice. Lots of Black and brown people in Cartagena. Lots of people that look like me, but they just speak Spanish. So and beautiful. I mean, the people are beautiful and they're lovely. I understand why the people, the folks is going down there to look for, women, but it's not even about that to me. What it was more about, and I shared a couple videos in my group from a young lady. She goes by Calculated Opulence on Instagram. Some of you might already be following her. I actually met her. We ended up staying we're in the same hotel, and we met at breakfast and we were talking. And she did a really great video about the whole passport bros thing in Colombia. It's really interesting. For me, I think people should do what they want to do, right? You're grown, you do what you want. The problem for me is that Cartagena is a huge sex tourist destination. Just like Bangkok, just like Bali. The thing for me is, I've been to Bali, I've been to Bangkok, I've seen some of these things. I just never really saw us doing it. I guess that's what for me was most striking, is seeing people that look like you exploiting people that look like you. That for me was the most. I've seen this stuff everywhere. I've seen it on the continent of Africa, but I've never seen so many Black men engaging in it. Because to me, it's really not about you're looking for submissive women. To me, is you're looking for women that you can exploit because they are in a different socioeconomic bracket. They don't have the choices. And then you try to make it be about us, and when I say us, Black women or Black American women, not doing this or not doing that, but it's really about you not wanting to have any accountability. And so you decide to get on a plane and go somewhere where you can do whatever you want because there's no accountability, because people are in a different financial situation. So I don't judge the people. Colombia is very poor. I saw a lot of poverty. I mean, I saw a level of poverty in Colombia that's very similar to the level of poverty that I've seen in African countries. Okay, so I think there are definitely affluent people there. There's no question about it. There are affluent people everywhere, right? But I did not see a lot of signs of much of a middle class per se. It was more of you're affluent or you're not kind of thing. And so there's a lot of, Cartagena is becoming a very popular destination. Four Seasons is getting ready to open a hotel. Tourism is taking back off post-COVID. So, the sexual tourism has restarted in full force. But it just made me sad to see people that look like me doing that. Because I've seen the clear people all over the world exploiting brown and Black people. I've seen it all over the place. This was the first time I'd seen us doing it. So that was the most striking part of it for me. And it bothered me. It did not, it did, because it's all, once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it. And it's all around you all the time, especially if you're out at night. So that coupled with the, you know, the feeling like you were in the pits of hell during the day because it was so hot did not thrill me about it. I would push back on that comment that women in other countries know the game. It's not that simple. When you don't have a lot of financial choices, you do what you need to do. So I completely have a problem with the people that choose to go to places and exploit people because they can, right? I don't think those of us in the States even really understand what real poverty is. Yes, there are people that are poor, but being poor in the United States of America and being poor somewhere else is a completely different thing. There's no safety net, there's no social services, there's no nothing. If you don't have family, you are in big trouble, and your family's poor too. Okay, so I was really, you know, in my understand, because I understand that, it really bothered me to see us, Black people, is what I mean when I say us. It bothered me to see Black people in that volume in a country doing what I've seen other people do all the time. But, you know, and do I speak Spanish? I'm learning Spanish. I'm not fluent, but I speak enough Spanish to get by. Colombia is a place that you will need Spanish. That's another thing I would say. I probably used more of my Spanish in Colombia while I was there than I do in everyday life here in Mexico. But it really helps if you speak Spanish. I will say that this way that they speak Spanish in Colombia, and I was actually talking to one of my guides about it, is a little different than the way they speak in Mexico. It's still Spanish, but the way they run their words together is a little different. I actually thought it was easier for me to pick up on some of what they were saying than in Mexico. But if you speak Spanish, it's very beneficial in Colombia because not as many people don't speak English there really. And they shouldn't have to. But even, I mean, the hotels and places like that, yes. But once you get out of the hotels and you're in the street and stuff, taxi drivers, all that stuff, they don't speak. So it really helps if you speak Spanish, or make sure you have your Google Translate downloaded onto your phone so that you can communicate with people. So, but I definitely felt like it was one of the first places because I live in Mexico, and yes, there are poor people in Mexico, but there are also middle class people as well as very wealthy people who live here. But what was striking to me was the gap between those that have and those that don't. It's kind of like when you're in Africa, it's kind of the same thing. When you go to African countries, that's very apparent as well. But Cartagena, I mean, I think Cartagena was fine. I think if you've never been, I don't need to go back to Cartagena. I feel like I went to Cartagena. I did, you know, the tours. I had really good food. I will say I love the Afro Latin food there. I ate arepas till they were coming out of my nose, and I'm happy about it. But I left Cartagena on that Sunday, and I went to Medellin. And Medellin was more my speed. I actually I was supposed to be in Medellin for 3 days, and I ended up extending my stay and staying for, was it 2 more days or 3 more days? I actually ended up staying the whole week. So I ended up staying in Medellin from Sunday to Friday. And I only went back to Cartagena because I had a tour that I had booked, a boat tour, which I'll tell you about in a minute, that I wanted to do. And I was flying out of Cartagena to go back home. So I needed to be back there. But I went to Medellin, and I loved Medellin. Medellin to me is like a first class city, and the climate was perfect. And I don't like being hot, as you all, if you follow me for a while, you would know that I do not enjoy extreme heat, and I hate humidity. Medellin had similar temperatures to where I live in central Mexico, but it's apparently, they call it the city of eternal spring, and that's what it feels like. The climate was beautiful. It wasn't rainy season yet, but I think it rained one day. But it's like green and pretty, and I really liked it. I stayed at the Click Clack Hotel, loved it. It was in the Poblado neighborhood, which is a real, you know, it's a tourist neighborhood. I went to the mall. I went shopping while I was there. I did a tour to the city of the little town of Guatape. Yeah, Guatape. Loved it. I posted some videos about Guatape today. Loved it. The people in Colombia are beautiful and they're lovely. I mean, they're some of the most attractive people I've seen anywhere in the world. I'm not even gonna lie. The men and the women, and they're really nice people. So it's like I found Medellin to be more my speed because the climate suited me better. It was more of like a city. Even though there's tourism there, I didn't feel like I was in a tourist town like I did like when I was in Cartagena. I felt like I was in a city that had things that I could do as a tourist, but it wasn't really a tourist destination. So I liked that about it. I didn't feel that when I was out, people were constantly trying to get me to buy things from them, which is kind of the case when you're in Cartagena. From the minute, people will be trying to sell you something as soon as you step into like the walled city or any of those kinds of places. And I didn't really experience that in Medellin. Great food. I went to this restaurant. It was so good. I had this whole snapper with a coconut shrimp sauce. It was outstanding. The restaurant is called Andaluz, and it was maybe a 5 to 7 minute walk from my hotel, and it was outstanding. I did 2 tours. I did a city walking tour where I went into the city. I took the train. Medellin actually has a whole transit system. I think it's the only city that has like a the kind of public transit system they have. They have both a train system and a really great tram. They have like a tram system so that people that live up in the mountainside, because my guide was explaining to me that unlike a lot of other places, the people that live up in the mountains are actually some of the poorest people in the city. The poor people tend to live higher up. And so he took me up and I got to see like the neighborhoods that were up there. There's some development that they're doing, but there's still a lot of poor people living up in that part of the city. But the tram system was really impressive, and their subway system was really impressive and very clean and nice. We also went to Plaza Botero, which is Botero Square, which is named after Fernando Botero, who is a very famous, he's Colombian, he's from Medellin, and he's a very famous sculptor and artist, painter and sculptor. And he does these, a lot of his paintings of really fat, round people. There's another artist here in Mexico who does something similar, and there's another artist from Costa Rica who does something similar. But so there are a lot of sculptures around the plaza, and there's also like displays of his work in a gallery. There's a lot of art. They have a really great art scene. There's a mall called the Nacional Palacio. It's a shopping mall, but it also the upper floors, they let artists display their work there, and you can also buy the art. I'm actually going to be doing some posts of some of the art that I saw there. It's just beautiful. I mean, some of them looked almost like photographs, like lifelike, beautiful art from lots of different artists. And you can go in there and you can look at art, you can buy art. They also have one of the biggest collections of, how do I say this, fake athletic shoes that I've ever seen. I've gone to shopping centers in Bali, in Indonesia, and also in Montenegro, where they had whole shopping malls filled with fake luxury brands, Vuitton, Gucci, stuff like that. But I've never seen this scale of like athletic shoes, like Nike, Adidas, and I mean good looking duplicates. I mean, they looked real. Even though some of them, and designers, so some of them they weren't real. If your sneaker game is good enough, Nike doesn't make anything that looks like that, or Vuitton doesn't make a sneaker that looks like that, but they looked good. I mean, some of the quality, like I looked inside of them, I looked at them, they were very, very good. But it's like a whole mall, like the entire, like I think the second floor were just filled with stores and my tour guide like told me, he was like, they're not real, but they looked really, really good. And then you go to the upper floors, and that's where they had like the art and stuff. And then they had restaurants and stuff. It's a really beautiful building. I think it used to be something else. It almost looks like a palace, but now it's a shopping mall. It's a government building, he was saying to me. But it's really pretty. The architecture is beautiful in the city. This was down like their central downtown. So down there, he did tell me to be careful about taking out my phone when we were in the actual square. But everywhere else, he was like, it was fine. But in there, where it's really a lot of people concentrated, he was like, just be careful with your phone when you're walking through here. But it was I really liked Medellin a lot. I think I would have actually spent more time. I would have actually stayed there if I didn't have to fly out of Cartagena. I would have probably stayed there right through the rest of my stay. But I did go back to Cartagena and I did a boat tour and it was fun. I did enjoy it. Thankfully, it was cloudy that day. It was actually raining in the morning, which was a lot of the case in Cartagena. Like it would rain a lot in the morning and then the sun would come out later. But I was actually grateful for the rain and the clouds because the sun, I still got a sunburn. It's just cleared up. I had a sunburn right here because I forgot to put the sun thing on my nose. I had put it all over my face and forgot to put it on my nose. And like right from here to here was 2 shades darker. It all peeled off. I still have a little line right here from where I had my sunglasses on because the sun was that strong. Even though it was cloudy, I still got a sunburn. So the lesson is wear your 50 to 70. I think mine's is like 70 SPF. I use a Neutrogena stick and it works really great. But for some reason, I forgot to put it on my nose and I still got a sunburn. That's how strong the sun is. But this tour that I went on was a lot of fun. We went to 4 different, there are several islands off the coast, like little land. Some of them are more like sandbanks and some of them are actually little islands that people, like affluent people live on. And then there was one island that people actually lived on. But we stopped at 4 different islands. And the first one used to be an entry point into Cartagena. So there's actually a wall and it was a fort. And we did a tour there. It was very interesting. And then we went to another island, and then we stopped at Rosario Island, which was the party island, which was fun. It was very pretty. And all of the, it's like the tables are in the water, and they bring the food out to the tables, and you eat and drink at the tables, but you're in the water. And then they have people coming through on these little canoes, like with drinks. It was fun. It was a lot of partying on that stop. It was a lot of fun. It was weird to me that they stopped us there as the second to last stop instead of the last stop, because it would have made more sense for us to go there last, just because of what it was, what the nature of the island was. But it was fun. I'll tell you the other stops. Let me just look it up real quickly and tell you guys. But I definitely feel like if you go to Cartagena, that tour was a lot of fun. It was. I highly recommend the private Guatape tour. Guatape in Medellin, it's about an hour from Medellin. It is home to El Pinal, which is a monolith. A monolith is like a huge landmass. It's not exactly a mountain, but it's really tall. And you can climb the monolith. I did not. They have steps going all the way to the top, and I think there's a restaurant up there. I don't do climbing, y'all. I've never loved climbing, but especially now with the way my knees are set up, I don't do climbing. I don't find climbing fun. I don't understand why people think climbing like 600 stairs is good, but people were up there. But there's a town like right around the Guatape is right on the other side of where La Piedra, where the monolith is. So we did the monolith first, and then we went into Guatape and had lunch there, walked the boardwalk. They're building a boardwalk that goes from one end of the lake. And the whole town is sitting on a man-made lake. And it is one of the prettiest lakes I've ever seen. I just kept asking guy over and over, this is really not like man-made? And he was like, yes, they put it in here. They actually built it and put it in there. And part of it is used to power the town, like electricity. And he was like, no, it's not. It's not from an ocean or anything. It's man-made. But it's absolutely beautiful. If you go to Medellin, you should absolutely do a day trip. You can do I think it's about an hour and 15 minutes or something like that. But he did tell me, he told me that I had picked a perfect day to go because I went on Thursday. He told me that Friday, Saturday, he said Saturday and Sunday are horrible days. He said just getting there, the traffic is really bad. And, you know, it's one way each direction going around a mountain. It's a beautiful drive. But he was like, one of the biggest issues they have in Medellin is landslides, especially during rainy season, mudslides. And so they were doing construction on the road because they had a mudslide that had taken out part of one of the side roads and part of the main road, and they were fixing it. So he was telling me, you know, it's better to do this on a Wednesday or a Thursday in the week when there are not a lot of people going there. And it was really nice because it wasn't crowded. I could really see the town. One of the prettiest things about the town is the buildings have what they call zócalos, which are the lower wall of the building is painted in these really bright, pretty colors. And each person, like if a person is a shoemaker, they may have a motif about it with a man making shoes. If they're a florist, they may have a motif. And it's almost like 3D coming out of the wall. It's really beautiful. I actually posted, if you look at the post I did, I'm going to do some more just about the zócalos in the town. Gorgeous. And it would be hard to see it if it was crowded. It'd be hard to really appreciate how beautiful it is if it's a really crowded day. So he was telling me I had picked a perfect day to go there because I went on a day when it was not crowded with people. So if you're going to do a tour to Guatape, I actually went on Wednesday, not Thursday, because I'm looking on here when I went. He said, like, pick a day earlier in the week. But he said Saturdays and Sundays are the worst day. He's like, you'll literally have to be like going through people like this. So he was like, if you're going to go to Guatape, like try to do it not on a weekend. So the tour I did in Cartagena was Rosario Island, Baru, Cholon, and Playa Blanca. I thought the Rosario Island was really pretty. It is a party island though, but it's very pretty. You know, all the beautiful people were up there half dressed and, you know, preening and whatever, but they were beautiful people. It was nice looking at them. Very pretty. But the beach itself was very pretty, I thought. Playa Blanca was also pretty. I didn't really care that much for Baru and Cholon. I could have like skipped that, but I think we stopped I think Cholon is where we stopped and people got in the water and you can snorkel there, but I didn't. But that was a really cool thing to do. So I definitely recommend doing a boat tour if you're going to be in Cartagena, because the beach in Cartagena itself is really not that nice. So if you want to go to a nice beach, you probably want to go to one of the beach clubs on one of the islands that are off the coast of Cartagena, and it's not that far. And the boat ride is fun. I met really fun people on the boat. It was a really good time. Even though I got a little sunburn on my nose, it was fun. And it was the last day that I was there. I left early the next morning. So it was definitely worth it. And I really enjoyed it. But there are lots of activities you can do in Cartagena. They have party bus tours. They have, what was the other thing for this girl I met did? She did the party bus tour, and they also have like a bar crawl thing you can do. The nightlife in Cartagena is very active. So if you want to be up all night and out all night, you could do that in Cartagena if that's your thing, right? That's not necessarily my thing, but we hung out after the food tour. We sat. You can sit around in the streets. They have a lot of live entertainment in Gethsemane on the square. People are, singing, performing. Drinks are it's very inexpensive. I mean, we had several rounds of drinks. It was not expensive. I had 2 massages at my hotel. I think I paid like $32 to $34 US for a 90-minute massage. Was it 90 minutes? Yeah, it was 90 minutes. So, the US dollar will go further in Colombia than it does in Mexico in terms of vacation. So I definitely think, I think it's worth it if you can tolerate the heat. I cannot tolerate extreme heat. If I were going to Cartagena, and I may go back to Cartagena simply because the one thing I didn't do that I really want to do is to visit San Andreas Island. I've seen videos of San Andreas. Because I stayed in Medellin, I didn't get to do San Andreas and I didn't get to do Palenque. Those are the 2 things that I would do. but I wouldn't stay in Cartagena more than maybe 3 or 4 days, and I would not go back to Cartagena in the summer. I did not enjoy. It was very uncomfortable. Like if you're outside between 10 and 4 in the day, it's like you're sitting in the devil's armpit. Like you're sitting at the gates of hell. It's hot. It's just uncomfortable. It's like uncomfortably hot. And I don't care what you're wearing. You could be wearing linen. I don't care what you're wearing. You're going to be hot. So I would suggest, I don't know about October because someone told me they were there in December and it was horrible. So I would suggest going in winter, like January, February is when I may consider going. Probably not next year because I have trips that I'm doing next year in that time frame. So I probably won't do it then. But I will not go back to Cartagena in the summer. Ever, ever, ever. I would say Medellin is perfect to go. He said they have a rainy season there. It doesn't last very long. But even on the warmest day, it wasn't humid. I can tolerate it being hot if it's not humid. And Medellin was more like where I live here in Mexico, where even when it's hot, it's not humid here. So if you walk on the shaded side of the street, it doesn't feel as hot. I don't care what side of the street you on in Cartagena. Your clothes will be sticking to you in 5 minutes and you'll be sweating like a horse. It's just hot. Like the only other place I've been that hot is probably Merida, Mexico, which I always call where the devil lives. I always tell people the devil lives in Merida, but he vacations in Puerto Vallarta in the summer. Well, now I think he probably gave vacations in Cartagena part of the summer too, because it is hot. Like from the minute you go outside, the humidity is like just envelopes you in Cartagena. So if you're going, I do think it's worth going. I would never say don't go just because it's hot. Yeah, it's like New Orleans hot. It's like I will never go back to New Orleans for Essence Music Festival. Essence Music Festival in 2019, I went and it wasn't a one and done thing for me. And I enjoyed myself, but it was a one and done thing for me because being outside even for 15 minutes, at one point, this is a digression for me, but at one point, me and my cousin, I planned a trip for me and three or four of my cousins for Music Festival 2019. We had a ball. It was well organized because I organized it, and we had a ball. However, we got stuck at the Superdome and couldn't get an Uber back to our Airbnb from where we had to walk because the Airbnbs couldn't get into where we were because the traffic was so bad. So we had to walk out to a main road. I thought I was going to have a heat stroke. It was horrible. It is still one of the worst, it was horrible. Me and my cousin were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, like a couple months ago, and laughing when she came to visit me. Because she and I were the ones that walked because we couldn't take it anymore with the crowds in the Superdome. And we just wanted to go back to the nice air-conditioned rent that we were in. And we couldn't get an Uber to come and pick us up outside the Superdome. So we had to walk several blocks to get to a hotel so that we could get a taxi or Uber from there. And thankfully, the people in New Orleans are the sweetest though. We walked a couple blocks. We damn near fell out when we got to the air-conditioned lobby of the hotel. And the people in the hotel were so nice. They were literally giving drinks out to anybody that walked into the lobby, whether you were staying there or not. They offered us drinks when we walked in, even though we were staying there. And then we were able to sit in the lobby, have our little drink, get our body temperature back right, and then call an Uber to take us back. But I would never go back to Essence Music Festival again. I would never go back to New Orleans in July unless somebody was paying me. If y'all hear me going to Essence, somebody's paying me to go. I'm not going for free. I'm not going on my own dime. I'm not just going to go to Essence Music Festival. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I was standing at one point this close to the stage, and El DeBarge was right there. It was one of the highlights of my life because I love me some El DeBarge. But I would never do it again because it was just too hot. I mean, every time we went outside, it was a whole negotiation. And it was hard to get an Uber because, everyone was in town and it was a pain. And there were places that, you want to walk to enjoy. And Cartagena is another place that to really appreciate the walled city, you need to walk. You need to walk it. I did enjoy the walking tour that I did. I learned a lot. I got to see a lot. But if that guy didn't have that little fan I don't know what I would have done, because he was the MVP for having that fan, because my little hand fan was not doing enough. And then he finally had the good sense to dip us into that museum with the air conditioning. I think he took pity on me and shortened the tour, and we went in there. And then at the end, we also went into this coffee shop that was air conditioned, and had an iced coffee to end the tour. He was a sweetheart. I highly recommend that tour, and I'll put links to the tours that I did in my in the description of this video for anybody that's planning to go to Cartagena, because I did enjoy the tours that I did in the city, and it is a city that you want to walk around and see. You really do want to walk and see the art, the murals and all of that stuff. And it's hard to do that when you're sweating like a horse and you're just uncomfortable. And there are lots of like rooftop hotels and rooftop bars. There's this rooftop hotel. There's this hotel with a beautiful rooftop right when you come into the walled city. Up there, I had to get down from there. I thought I was going to have a heat stroke. Because even when you're not in the open sun, it's not the sun, it's the humidity. The air just feels so heavy. Even up on the roof, it was uncomfortable. So it's a city that I think you will enjoy if you go like in the winter, like the dead of winter. But I'm not sure that the fall months, from what I've heard, is not necessarily that much. The humidity doesn't seem to go away until like the winter months for a short period of time. Because everyone I spoke to who was from there, they were like, it's like this all the time, which did not make me feel very hopeful. But one person I heard, she went in February and she said it was very nice and she's planning to go back in February. So that's just something for you to be aware of, and make sure you bring your repellent. Yes, I've heard about Malaysia, and that's why I've not yet been, because Malaysia didn't sound very appealing to me from a heat and humidity standpoint, and I'm not flying that far to be uncomfortable. That's why I haven't been there yet. Take your repellent when you go to Cartagena. They have things that bite in Cartagena. I don't even know if they're mosquitoes. I don't know what it was that was biting me. I never saw it. It's like you're being terrorized because something's biting you and you can't even see it to kill it. There are things that bite that you won't even see them. And it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was waiting to get on the boat to go on the tour, and stuff was just biting me. And I thankfully, I had repellent spray in my purse. So I pulled it out and sprayed my legs and stuff, and it was fine because I had on shorts and a bathing suit, and those things started tearing my behind up. So definitely don't go outside without putting on some repellent. Not just in the evening. Don't go outside, because when I went on the food tour, I knew it was 4 o'clock. So I made sure I had done everything before I went out. But for some reason, I thought I was going out in the morning, I would be okay, which I should have known better. It had been raining. I should have known better. Don't go outside in Cartagena in the summertime without a good repellent. I'm not talking about no natural repellent. You need something with DEET in it. I don't mean any harm, but you need something. You need some off, because those things don't respect nothing. It's like Holbox, like Isla Holbox in Mexico. You need something that mosquitoes will respect, like off. You don't want some, plant-based. It's not going to work for you. It's not. You want something with off on it. I like the family unscented off. That's usually what I carry around in my purse. Just talking about it is making me feel like something's going to bite me. But family unscented one, I really like it a lot. And that's usually what I carry around. I also have like a roller, and I have the wipes. So I keep the wipes. I like the pack of off wipes, and I had the spray. But that lavender, they will laugh at you. They will laugh and bite you if you just put lavender on. Lavender is not going to help you with the mosquitoes they have in Cartagena. Or if you go to Holbox here, it's like in the summer months and the rain, and then it rains in the morning. So you've got the rain, then you've got the humidity, then you've got standing water in places, and standing water is the mosquitoes' playground, and they're going to come out and they're going to bite you. They're going to be all over you. So definitely make sure you have repellent. I think having some repellent wipes are really great too. But don't come down there and have an umbrella. That's the other thing. I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't bring an umbrella with me on this trip, and I wouldn't make that mistake again. Definitely bring an umbrella with you, and bring repellent spray and repellent wipes. I actually don't think I used any of that in Medellin. Nothing bit me in Medellin. Nothing really bothered me in Medellin. But in Cartagena, you're definitely going to need, I mean, it's a tropical environment. But I definitely think both places are worth visiting. But I would definitely go back to Medellin again. Like if I saw a cheap flight, I would book and go back to Medellin for a couple of days just to hang out. I enjoyed Medellin. It's my kind of place. Oh, yes. And do bring a straw hat, Jamie. That's right. A large brim sun hat. I mean, they sell them everywhere there, but I don't know about the UV quality of those hats. I had my own fedora that I brought with me, but definitely bring a hat. I'm actually, I have some of these things on front of mine because I'm now starting to think about my trip to Egypt that's coming up later this year. And I have to get ready for the sun there because I heard it is not a joke. It's very hot. Sun is not a game there. So I'm already like game planning myself. And it's a conservative country, so I got to think about what I'm going to be wearing and make sure I'm dressed properly and respectfully, and also have my repellent and my sunblock. I also just bought myself a UV umbrella, but I'll do a whole separate video about getting ready for that trip because I've had to like give a lot of thought to that trip. But you definitely want to have a hat for Cartagena, and you definitely want to have repellent. So I can only speak to when I was there, and I was there in June. I don't know anything about October because I wasn't there in October. But all I will say is I will not be going back to Cartagena in the summer months for any reason. I just won't do that to myself ever again. And if I do go back, it would just be for me to get to San Andreas because Cartagena is the easiest place to fly or take a ferry. But I heard the ferry ride is not for the week. So my plan is to fly from Cartagena to go to and stay at San Andreas for a couple of days. So if you see me back in Cartagena, then that's the reason why I'm there, because I do want to do San Andreas and I didn't get to do it. And I would like to do Palenque. So if I go back, I would probably do Palenque and then get on the plane and go to San Andreas and then come back and then go back home. I wouldn't like spend time in Cartagena. I feel like I've seen it. I get it. It's nice. It's worth visiting, but it's not a place like I feel like I would go back to over and over again. There are places that I like and I go back to over and over again, but Cartagena is not one of those places. I would go back to Medellin. I enjoyed Medellin. Are there any questions for me? That's pretty much sums up my trip to Colombia. Overall, I think it's a lovely country. I think the people are really nice. I enjoyed all of my tour guides. They were both really kind, helpful, interesting, and several of them were very easy to look at. And just really nice people, very, very attractive people, very nice people. I loved the fruits and stuff. I ate my life in the fruit market. I enjoyed myself, in terms of the fruits and the food. I love, the food is not spicy there, but it is flavorful. And there's definitely a lot of African influence on the food in both Medellin and Cartagena. So I really didn't have anything. I don't think I had a bad meal per se. But the best meal I would say I had was the one I had at Mama. I think it was Doña. The name of the restaurant is, I'll put the name of it in the description. It's the restaurant at the Hotel Casalola. It was very, very good. There was this seafood, what did they call it? It was like a seafood stew. They love coconut milk-based food in Colombia, and they know how to use that coconut. The coconut rice is delicious. That seafood stew was outstanding. It was just outstanding. And then they had this ball stuffed with chicharron, which is pork. Oh my God, it was so good. I think I had it 2 days in a row or something. I had it at the pool, and then I actually ordered it again for dinner. It was so delicious. The food was really good in Cartagena and in Medellin. But Medellin, what I liked about Medellin is like a city, like if you're in Mexico City or so in addition to having really good Colombian food, I also had really good Thai food in Medellin. And there's a restaurant called Sweet Georgia's where I had excellent fried chicken wings, y'all. And one thing that I have very hard, I am not able to get in Mexico is good fried chicken unless I make it myself. And that fried chicken was top tier. And this was in Medellin. It's called Sweet Georgia's. It was very good. And the mac and cheese was good. So I don't know who gave them the recipe, but it was good. And I mean, there's a good amount of Black American transplants in Medellin. I actually met, what was interesting is that restaurant, I went in there like in the middle of the day. There wasn't really anybody after lunch. There were only, everybody that was in there was Black and male except me. But they were friendly. And most of them, I think, one guy lived there that I was chatting with, and the other two were visiting. And then I ran into another Black American man on the street, and he and I were chatting for a while. He was visiting from the States, and we were chatting for a while. I saw a lot of Black American men in Medellin as well. Several of them with much younger Colombian women, but a lot of them just by themselves wandering about. But I didn't necessarily get the same vibe that I got in Cartagena. But it was there's a lot of the same thing going on in Medellin as well. This one guy made a comment. I overheard this one guy make a comment where he basically said, if you're looking for a good time, you go to Cartagena. If you're looking for a girlfriend or a wife, you go to Medellin. Interpret that how you will. And he wasn't talking to me, so I didn't say anything because I mind my business. But I was like, that's an interesting thing to say. But so some of what I observed, it's all over Latin America. It's not just Colombia. Some of that is, you're going to see it if you go to Brazil. Have you been to Brazil? Brazil was actually the place that I was aware of. For some reason, Colombia was not on my radar, so I was kind of surprised by it. But if you are traveling around South America, you're probably going to see some of that, and it is what it is. My level of Spanish, yes, I'm learning Spanish. I live in Mexico, so I have to learn Spanish. I'm learning Spanish. I don't feel like I'm fluent, but I feel like I understand Spanish very well, but I still feel funny talking, and really the key to be getting fluent is you have to use it. You have to speak it, right? And so that's one of the things I'm trying to get into is speaking it out loud. And I've started putting Post-its around my house with just Spanish words, the names of things, so that I have to speak it, even when I'm by myself, that I have to use it, because the only way I'm going to get conversational, I don't expect that I'm ever going to be like speaking Spanish like a native, but I want to be able to have full-on conversations with people, and not just understand what they're saying, but also be able to speak back to them and have them understand what I'm saying. Is I have to get more confident about just using it. Even if you say it the wrong way, people are really nice about it. They're so happy that you're trying to talk to them that they're really nice. I would say that here, and as well as in Colombia, they were happy that the little bit that I knew, that I was able to like communicate things to them. And if I couldn't, I looked it up. Because you're not going to get very far in Colombia without Spanish. Because like I said, it's not as many people. There are a lot of people that speak Spanish speak English in Mexico, because Mexico's so close to the United States and people come and go. So it's easy, especially where I live. Everybody speaks to me in English. Even Mexican people speak to me in English. So I have to make an effort to use it, but it's worth the effort because I really do want to learn it. And I often have to ask people to speak to me in Spanish. I have to ask them in Colombia because that's what you're going to get. So you really do need it in Colombia. I think Colombia would actually be a great place to go and learn it, because you would have it all around you and you would have to use it. Okay, so there's some questions. Did you find the tours were on hazardous roads in the mountains hills? I did not find anything hazardous about my drive, but I did feel like the person who was driving me clearly knew what he was doing and was a good driver. He was never speeding, but the roads are twisty in some places. They are. And they're all one going this way, one going that way. except like when you're going into Guatape, once you get off the highway, there's like a regular highway, but once you get off the highway and you go into the main highway to go into the town, it's a one going this way and you're going around the mountains. But I never felt like worried or anything. I felt like he was a really good driver. He wasn't driving crazy. And people there are not speeding. People wait their turn and so on. So it wasn't like aggressive driving or anything like that. So I wasn't nervous. I answered the question in Spanish. I stayed in hotels while I was in Colombia. I stayed in hotels throughout my time. I did not do Airbnbs. I stayed in a small boutique hotel in Cartagena, and I stayed in a hotel in Medellin, because for both of them, I usually will stay in Airbnb if I'm going to be somewhere for a long extended period of time. But I don't really stay in Airbnbs as much as I used to, because as a person who travels a lot, I really tend to stay places where I'm either going to get to use my travel agent discount, or that I'm going to get to use points or something like that. And Airbnb doesn't provide any of that. I now am able to get points with Delta staying in Airbnb. So I am going to be using Airbnb when I go to Italy later this summer, and when I go to Greece, I think I'm staying in an Airbnb for a couple of nights. But I don't use Airbnb as much as I used to. And because it was Colombia and I had never been there before, I felt better just staying in a hotel. So that's what I did. The arepas were wonderful, and I ate a lot of them. Jamie, I did. I must confess, I ate many arepas. I've never been to Brazil. It's on my list, but I am going to be doing my homework about when is the best time of year, because it's my fault that I went to Cartagena when I went, but Cartagena was kind of a last minute decision. To be a little transparent, I was supposed to be going on the trip with a friend, but some things came up and she wasn't able to go, and I just went ahead and did the trip without her. But I probably would not have gone in June otherwise. But I am definitely going to do my homework about Brazil before I plan to go there, because I don't want to go there and be, miserable. And I was borderline miserable by the end. By Sunday in Cartagena, I was kind of miserable because it was just so hot. Every time I went outside, I was immediately thinking about how soon I could get back inside because it was so hot. Did I bring carbon monoxide detectors? Of course I did. You all know how I roll. I don't go nowhere without a carbon monoxide. Come on now. Don't ask me that. Of course I did. And I whipped it out as soon as I got there. They don't have no carbon monoxide detectors in none of them hotels, girl. I whip that sucker out everywhere I go. I don't go nowhere without a carbon monoxide detector. Even in America, if I'm staying, I was in Florida in April and I took out my carbon monoxide detector. I stayed in an Airbnb by the beach and I took out my carbon monoxide detector. I go nowhere. I don't assume that anyone has one. And if they have one, then we got two. Great. We got extra. With all that's going on with these situations in these hotels and whatever, we just had another people died in a resort in somewhere, was it in Cabo recently? I don't go nowhere without my carbon monoxide. And one thing I will say, make sure you check your battery on your carbon monoxide detector before your trip, because I had to go find batteries when I was in Tanzania because my batteries died. So make sure you check your batteries before you travel to make sure they're working. After school with Dr. Crystal. I'm in Mexico now in these 2 weeks. They're so gracious. Yes, they are. They're the nicest people. Mexican people are some of the nicest people I've ever met anywhere in the world. And that's true. And I'm not saying that to be nice. They really and truly are some of the nicest people I've ever met. Very nice people in Colombia as well. But they're just some of the most gracious and kind people. And I always just think how lucky I am that they don't treat us the way that we treat them when so many of them come to America and are treated so poorly because their English isn't perfect and all these things, and how blessed and lucky I am that they don't treat me that way. They are some of the kindest, nicest people I've ever met anywhere. Airbnb. Some of the Airbnbs do have them, because I was just looking at an Airbnb the other day because I'm getting ready to go back to Puerto Vallarta. Y'all know I love Puerto Vallarta. Get ready to go back to Puerto Vallarta to hang out with some friends. And one of the Airbnbs I'm looking at has a carbon monoxide detector. But guess what? I'm still taking my carbon monoxide detector with me. I don't go anywhere without it. Yeah, I think I have answered all the questions. And that is about an hour and some change. So I hope that this was helpful. If there are subjects that you guys would like me to talk about for future lives, please drop them in the chat or in the comments to the video after it's up on YouTube. I'm trying to think of, I don't want to just be on here talking about things that are not useful and helpful to people who are traveling and thinking about travel. So if there are other subjects that you would like me to talk about, please do drop them in the comments. I will be, I'm getting ready to get planning for all my fall trips. I got a lot of trips coming up starting in August. I'm gonna be on the move again. So I'm trying to think through my wardrobe because I'm going for my birthday. So I'm going to be trying to be cute for my birthday in Sicily. So I have some things that just came in the mail that I ordered. So y'all might be seeing some videos as I try to pick out what's going to Sicily and what's going to Greece with me. And then Egypt is coming up, and I don't know what I'm gonna wear because I've never traveled somewhere where everyone that tells me how important it is for me to be dressed conservatively. So I bought this one dress and I swear I put it on and I felt like I was in a burqa because it's up to here. I don't think I've ever had a dress with the collar up to here and the sleeves all the way down to here. But yeah, because I don't have anything. I mean, I really don't have any appropriate clothing for Egypt. So I'm trying to get my act together. Plus it's going to be hot. So I'm trying to find some linen pieces and things that I can feel comfortable and good in and not uncomfortable in. But I think the burqa dress is going to have to go back. I'm still on the fence about whether I'm going to keep it. But anyway, I took my giant suitcase to 3 cities in Mexico. That carry-on life was looking so, and that carry-on life. I don't know how y'all be with them. I see people in the airport in the big old suitcases. I don't know how y'all do it. Unless I'm moving, I can't be I'm actually getting ready to go to the U.S. In a couple of months, and I have to go bring some things back. So I'm going to take an empty suitcase and bring it back with some stuff that I need to bring back with me. But otherwise, if I'm just traveling somewhere, I always worry that something's going to happen to my suitcase, and I have had things happen to my suitcases. So I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to go to baggage claim. I don't want to be standing around waiting for a bag. I also feel from a security standpoint, baggage claim is one of the most unsafe places in the airport. Any person that does security will tell you that. I don't like being in the baggage claim area. I just like to get my suitcase and get off the plane with my stuff and leave, especially in the U.S. I don't want to be in baggage claim waiting for no bag. So I am not about checking bags. It's just not something I do. Well, I'm pretty sure nobody's going to be offering to buy me, but if somebody does, I will tell you all about it. Jamie said my friend went to Egypt a few months ago and they offered to buy her at the pyramids. Well, child, I've heard so many things about Egypt that would probably make the average person not want to go. But let me tell you something. I've been trying to see them pyramids since I was a little girl. Nothing shall deter me. If they offer to buy me, I would just have to tell them what I had to tell this one man one other time who offered. I told him he didn't have it. He couldn't afford it. I said, if I gave you a price, you wouldn't be able to afford it. And that's it. You can't, sometimes you just gotta shrug your shoulders and move on. But I believe it. But I am looking forward to seeing the pyramids. I've always wanted to see them, but I've watched videos. I've seen so many things about people's experiences, especially in Cairo and Giza, which are not necessarily positive, but I've also seen really positive things about other parts of the country. And I'm going to be doing, visiting multiple parts of Egypt. So we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to, something that I've been wanting to do since I was a kid. So I am looking forward to seeing the pyramids. I'm not looking forward to the heat. So I'm already trying to think through how to deal with it. But October, which is when I'm supposed to be going, is supposed to be a cooler time of year. So we'll see. But no matter when you go, they say it's hot in Egypt, no matter when you go. So we'll see how it goes. I think that's it for tonight. Thanks for being here, you guys. Like I said, if there's subjects that you'd like me to talk about, please feel free to drop them in the comments of this video when it goes up, and I will take them under consideration because I'm putting together, subjects for the next lives that I will be doing. So I will see you guys next Thursday for Thursday tea time, and we'll be talking about another subject. I don't know what yet, but I'll let you guys know on social media, and if you're in my group, you'll probably know before everybody else. One other thing, as you know, I am doing meetups starting in 2024 in multiple places. Zanzibar in January, Negril, Jamaica in February, Turkey, Istanbul, and Cappadocia in April, Tobago in May, and I am working on Tuscany and Sicily right now, so I have more details about that. I'm still trying to put that together. Those will probably be in September and or October. Negril is almost sold out, so I'm just letting you know if you are interested in the trip to Jamaica, there's only one spot left, but there are lots of spaces in the other trips. Zanzibar is half full, but it still has lots of space. What is my meetup group name? I don't have a meetup group. I have a Facebook group. It's called Fly 40 Plus Black Solo Travel. Let me tell you the right name because I feel like I'm saying it wrong. It's the Fly 40 Plus Black Solo Travel Group, Black Woman Solo Travel Group, I believe. I'll tell you. I was close. Here it is. Fly 40 Plus Black Women Solo Travelers. I was close. That's the name of my Facebook group, and there'll be a link in the description here. But Negril, there's still one spot for Negril, B. Irving, but it's almost sold out. So if you're interested in Negril, just so you're aware. It's only $119 to hold your spot, by the way, but you have to be fully paid by, I believe, December. But there's one spot left for Jamaica, but there are lots of spots left in Zanzibar, Turkey, which I think is going to be a fantastic trip. Turkey has lots of spaces. Tobago has several spaces. These are small meetup groups. Zanzibar is probably the biggest group that I'm doing next year. All the other groups are going to be groups of 8 women. That's it. I'm not doing some massive big group trips. For me, this is about getting Black women over 40 to go places that they would like to go, but they're afraid to go by themselves. And it's going to be small groups, and there's going to be lots of time for you to do stuff on your own, because part of it for me is getting you to the country, and we'll have excursions and things that we'll do together, but you'll also have time to do things by yourself. Okay? So I highly encourage you. You can visit my website and click on Travel With Me, and you can get to the information about the meetups there. And I also have a link in the description. But I just wanted to mention that because several people have told me that they were interested in the Valentine's Day trip to Negril, and it's almost full. It's probably going to be sold out by the end of the week. So just letting y'all know, if you're interested in that trip in particular, it's about to be gone. Yes, Sicily, I'm working on that because I want to make sure that it's really good. I love Sicily, and I want to make sure that I get people to do all the things that I want to do. And Sicily's a relatively big island, so I'm trying to figure out like where we're going to be based. I'm thinking it's probably going to be Palermo. I'll be very clear when I get back from my birthday trip because I'm going to Sicily for my birthday. I love Sicily, going for my birthday. So when I get back, I'll probably be ready then to like firm up exactly what we're going to be doing and where it's going to be based. But I think it's going to be either Palermo or Taormina, Sicily, one of those two places. And then the Tuscany trip we're probably going to be based in Florence, but I'm trying to figure out what other places I want to make sure people see while we're in Tuscany. Because Florence is amazing, but the whole region of Tuscany is wonderful. And I don't want to anyone can go to Florence. So for me, I want you to have an experience that you would not just be able to just have. And so to me, it's really about experiencing the region not just the city of Florence, even though Florence is my favorite city. I've been there probably more than I've been anywhere else. I've been to Florence like 7 times. But I feel like you would be missing out if you only see Florence. If you go to Tuscany, you only see Florence. So that's why I haven't put those two out yet because I'm still working on them. And they're going to be September, October time next year, 2024. But they will be probably dropping by September, August, September time this year. But I'm still working on the details on those. Okay, so thanks for being here. I will see you guys at the next live, which will be next Thursday. I'm trying to do these on a more regular basis, but it's hard for me to do them when I'm traveling. So that's why, if I'm traveling, I usually won't do a live because I'm doing other things. I mean, like travel stuff. So I should be around for a while. So I will be doing one next week. So I will be on next week, and I'll let you guys know what I'll be talking about by next week. So thanks for being here. I always appreciate all you coming and chatting with me because I know you have lots of other things you could be doing. So I appreciate your presence. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you following me. I appreciate you being interested in stuff that I'm doing. And I will see you guys at the next live. Oh, yes. One last thing. So she said, I like that idea of going through Panama. One other thing, Copa does these layovers. You can actually check out Copa Airlines. And my understanding is they have this option where you can do a long layover and do Panama on the way to somewhere else. And they fly all over South America. So definitely, if you're going to go to Colombia, I didn't find out about it till after I had booked my trip. But if I'm going back, I would definitely try to take advantage of that from Copa and do a layover and see some of Panama before I go somewhere else in South America. And I really like the airline. I really like them a lot. So I do recommend if you're flying to South America, Copa is a good option. All right. See you guys. I'll see you guys in the next live. Have a good evening. Bye.